Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dharma Helper, and this is DH Reviews. This is my Season 1, Episode 1 review of Scorpion. If you missed earlier this week, I also put out my Season 1, Episode 1 review of Gotham, as well as my Season 2, Episode 1 review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Those videos will be linked in the description of this one, as well as placed as annotations back here by the Joker for Gotham, and then by Walter White for my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2 premiere review. So with that said, this review is going to follow that format of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. review, where I talk very briefly about the story of the episode, and then I want to talk about the characters that we saw in this episode, and then wrap the review up with my thoughts on my overall thoughts on the episode and the series moving forward. With that said, the story of the episode follows Walter O'Brien, the super genius guy, and it starts off with a flashback to his childhood in Ireland, and we see SWAT guys sort of storm the house that he lived in Ireland, and reveal that Scorpion, the hacker that they're looking for, is actually a child, and Scorpion, Walter, says, if you extradite me to the U.S. and all this stuff, I will tell you how I got into NASA. And it's revealed over the course of this flashback that the only reason that he hacked into NASA was that he wanted a poster of the blueprints that they had for his wall. And so I thought that spoke to his character, and I thought that was a very important beat in the story. And then we meet Agent Cabe as well, who plays an important role in the episode, and plays an important role, their relationship between the relationship between Walter and Cabe is an important beat as well in the story of this first episode. And then in the present day, Walter is working in a diner as an IT guy, and he's also talking to his girlfriend at this diner and basically breaking up with her. And we see through this scene that Walter is intellectual, but he's not really able to connect emotionally and understand emotionally the people around him, because he treats his girlfriend like a problem very analytically, and he doesn't understand emotionally. You know, he breaks out this chart of her feelings that he anticipates that she's going to feel over the course of so many weeks or whatever. So he treats it like a problem and not like a person would be empathetic and sympathetic. So that, again, is another important beat in the story and establishing the tone of this show. And then we see him go to this warehouse-type building with all these other different people. It's Toby and Happy and Sylvester, his team, his think tank. And they are all geniuses in their own right, in their own specific fields. Happy is the engineering sort of electrical genius, and she's working on the electrical of the warehouse. And Toby is the psychiatrist, psychologist, behavioral analyst type genius, and Sylvester is the human calculator, the statistical genius. And so they're working on all this stuff and talking back and forth and saying all this stuff about how they have an IQ of 700 and they can't pay the bills and all this stuff. And Toby, the behavioral psychologist, actually had scammed some guys out of some money in a poker game, and he's pursued by those guys into the warehouse. And then we see Agent Cabe again, and he scares those guys off, and he basically offers these for Walter, Happy, Toby, and Sylvester. He offers them a job and says that, I think in an hour or 2 hours, they said, planes will start falling out of the sky because a software patch made it so that they lost communication with air traffic control towers, and they were basically flying blind up there and not able to land any of these planes, and they only had a certain amount of time until the planes ran out of fuel and some stuff was going to start happening. So they bring those guys on as the job, and we go back to the diner because I think Walter said that the Wi-Fi there was going to help them to patch into the air traffic control or something like that. And we meet Paige and Ralph, who I will expound on when I talk about the characters. But Paige is the waitress at the diner, and Ralph is her son. And Ralph is playing around with these salt shakers and ketchup packets and sugar packets and stuff. And it's clear, we see that he's not necessarily all there, and that he's also kind of emotionally not available. And he's more intellectual, and he plays chess with these pieces with Sylvester, I believe. And Sylvester sort of is in shock at how intelligent this kid is, because Sylvester's a grandmaster at chess, Walter points out. And the kid's basically able to beat him in, I think, 8 moves. So they talk about how he's a genius and all this stuff. And Paige, how she's not necessarily able to connect with her son. So they get into the Wi-Fi of the air traffic control tower, and they discover that they have to upload a patch or something like that. And they run into all these different problems trying to get the patch, but they solve all the problems with their intellectual minds and a little bit of help from Paige, who is able to keep them on track emotionally and offer that emotional and empathetic aspect to the team that none of the members of the team possess. And so eventually they are able to fix the problem and solve all this, solve the problem and save the planes. And at the end of the episode, Cabe, the Homeland Security agent from earlier, who over the course of the episode we see that he and Walter had a very troubled relationship after that flashback and during the course of their working together in the government. He offers them a job as a special task force to deal with stuff like that, like the planes or missing kids or counterfeit money. And he basically says that he can't train his men to be as smart and as analytical as Walter and his think tank and all those people. So he offers them a job, and Walter makes sure that Paige also gets a job, because she was really critical in helping get the plane situation fixed. So Walter goes and talks to Paige about Ralph, and he explains that Ralph is pretty much a genius, and he offers Paige a position on the team to kind of act as their translator in terms of emotional and empathetic and sympathetic stuff. And so that's the first episode, is an introduction to the team, a brief problem for them to solve and to show off their skill sets, and then setting up into what the team is going to be looking like moving forward into the first season. So with that said, let's talk about the characters of the episode. The main character, Walter O'Brien, is actually based on a real person. And the real Walter O'Brien did an AMA on Reddit, which really got me interested into the series, because to be honest with you guys, I wasn't so pumped to review this series until I read that AMA and learned all about his life and what he'd done so far and all the stuff that he's been thinking about. And it was clear to me that Walter, who is an executive producer on the show, put a lot of care and a lot of himself and a lot of love and attention into this show. And so that's what really got me pumped about reviewing it. And we see Walter in this episode, the character Walter, again, like I said, not necessarily able to connect emotionally to other people, but we see the strain that it has on him, and that he's conscious of that, and that he's able to say, he has a line in the episode, pretty much mirroring what his girlfriend said to him at the beginning of the episode: we're a long way from normal. And I think the formation of this team, and particularly the addition of Paige on the team, is going to be his attempt at solving that problem, because we see like I said, that he's a very intellectual person and very driven to solve problems. And I think he views this emotional disconnect as a problem that he can solve by adding Paige to the team and by giving that dynamic to the team. So I look forward to that. And we saw him connect with Paige maybe on a romantic level, the beginnings of a romance between the two. And we also saw him connect with Ralph, the kid. And I think that's because he sees a little bit of himself in Ralph. And he also doesn't necessarily want Ralph to fall into that same trap of being a long way from normal and not being able to communicate emotionally and be empathetic and sympathetic. So I think he built the team mostly to appease Gabe and mostly to solve their money problems. But I think the chief reason for him to build this team is to solve the problem of, why are we so far away from the normal? And then also to give Ralph people that he can relate to so that he doesn't fall into that emotional trap. And another member of the team is Sylvester, is the analytical guy, and he's sort of the odd man out. And that'll make sense when I talk about Toby and Happy. But he plays chess with Ralph, so I want to see more of him sort of interacting with Ralph. And I think since Toby and Happy are going to be interacting, and Paige and Walter are going to be interacting, Ralph and Sylvester are sort of left by themselves, and they'll interact more and grow more as friends over the course of this first season. He's got a process. He's almost obsessive compulsive, but he's very smart and very analytical and very mathematical in the way that he does things. And he's also got a little bit of wit to him, and he seems to me to be the heart of the team, the conscience of the team. So I want to see more of that moving forward in season 1. Toby and Happy. Toby was the behavioral psychologist, and he's the rogue, wild card member of the team. We're first introduced to him, like I said, when he's scamming these guys out of a poker game. So he's not necessarily, he's a nice guy, but he's not necessarily smart in the same way that the rest of the team is smart. He's more shrewd, and he's not. He doesn't think too many steps ahead in terms of what he does. He and Happy have a moment when they're breaking into a garage to get the software that hasn't updated for the planes. They have a moment where they give each other this look, and it's like, wow, you're smarter, or you're actually useful, or something like that. And there was a line that they gave and a look that they gave, and it felt to me like they were setting up maybe a romance or a love interest between the two of those people, Happy and Toby. So seeing more of that and that back and forth develop in season 1 is something I think is going to be pretty huge moving forward. Happy was the engineer, and she helped them set up the electricity in the warehouse, and she helped them break into the garage to get the hard drive, and she helped with the electrical and all that stuff. And like I said, I want to see her relationship with Toby develop, but I want to see more from her as a character, because we didn't really get a sense of her personality, I don't think, in this episode. And seeing that develop more as the season progresses, I think, will be very important in keeping people interested in that character. And then we have Abe, who was the Homeland Security agent that Walter had a spat with in his past, and that was pretty much based off of what Cabe was willing to do versus what Walt was willing to do. And they broke it down and basically said the greater good theory, where Cabe was willing to sacrifice people to accomplish the mission and get things done that Walter wasn't necessarily willing to do. So Cabe, in the course of this episode, to help them reach the airport in time, he crashes into a car with his car, and which prevents them from actually being hit. And I want to talk about that particular scene for a second while we're talking about Cave, because it felt important to me. And he explained it. The way he explained it was the greater good theory in practice, where he was sacrificing himself to allow them to get to the airport and save these lives. But to me, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what if it was the greater good theory in practice in a different way? In that he was willing to risk his life in this car crash and crash his car into this other car to prove himself to Walt, to kind of convince him later, to add to that evidence later, to convince him to make this task force. To kind of say, look, you saw how I crashed my car at the end, at the intersection there. You can see that I'm a changed person and I'm willing to help you out. So I wonder if he used that sort of as ammunition to convince Walter to make the team and come on and join the task force. So to see that relationship between Cabe and Walter develop over this first season, I think is going to be very important, and to see more of the reasoning behind why they separated, and more of what sort of things Cabe is willing to do and sacrifice that Walter isn't willing to do, and how that will affect the team. And because over this first episode, the team and Paige didn't get to see the side of Cabe that Walter was talking about in terms of sacrificing and the greater good theory, and they didn't see that part of Cabe. So revealing that to them over the course of this first season, I think, is going to play a huge part in whether or not they trust Cabe and their opinion of Cabe, and our opinion of Cabe as viewers. And then Paige and Ralph are going to wrap up my discussion of these characters. And Paige, Walter describes Paige as having a high EQ versus the high IQ. And like I said, the real Walter had a Reddit AMA, and he talked about IQ versus EQ and how Paige is based on a real person, and they're super nannies, basically, that babysit these geniuses, and they have high EQs and reasonable IQs, so they're sort of the babysitters for these geniuses in these think tanks. So Paige, adding that heart to the team, adding that emotional sympathy and empathy, will be a huge part of her first season. And whether she can tolerate Walt and his sort of eccentric behavior, his analytical behavior, because going back to Walt and his girlfriend, we saw that divide and how obviously they had a relationship that was at a breaking point. And seeing that with the breaking point, the divide for Paige, I think is going to be huge this first season. How much of that sort of brain, analytical problem-solving, high IQ, low EQ behavior can she tolerate before she has enough, and before the benefits to Ralph outweigh the benefits to Ralph are outweighed by the emotional stress and the problems that the team provides for her. And I think, like I said, her relationship with Walt is going to be romantic, but that's the first impression that I got from that. And I think that's also going to provide a problem if Walter continues his behavior of approaching things as problems to solve and not really having that emotional attachment to things. But if Paige can add that to him and teach him and guide him towards that, then the two can work really well together, and I think we'll see that in this first season and moving forward through the series. And then Ralph, her son, who we see as very detached over the course of this episode up until the last scene with Walter, I think he's going to evolve as a character and maybe become an actual member of the team in his own right, and contribute. I'd like to see maybe an episode where they have a case where none of them actually possess the knowledge to solve the case, and then we see Walter maybe in the background playing with stuff, and he makes an offhand comment like maybe you should do this, or have you considered this, and he actually contributes and helps the team solve the case. Seeing that, I think, would be impressive and a nice way to take that character. Seeing him, like I said, develop with Sylvester, a friendship and a camaraderie with Sylvester, because I anticipate Walt and Paige to go off on their own, and Toby and Happy to go off on their own. So that kind of leaves Sylvester and Ralph to kind of say ew, all that lovey-dovey stuff. Let's just be friends back and forth, all that stuff. Seeing Ralph come out of his shell, I think, is going to be important, because that was a main theme for this episode, was that Paige wasn't able to connect with Ralph in the same way that Walt was actually able to play that video game with him at the end of the episode. So seeing him come out of his shell and bond more with his mother and share a relationship with his mother is going to be a huge part of this first season, I believe. And if we see that, I'm going to be impressed, and I think that's a nice way to take that character. So that'll wrap up my characters discussion for the episode, and I'm going to finish up the review here. Like I said, my basic thoughts on this first episode. I liked it, and I talked about. The main thing that impressed me was the amount of care and the love that was put into the episode by Walt. I genuinely believe that because Walter was a executive producer, we saw a superior product in terms of the episode. He put a lot of his own touches on there, and it was stuff that I saw in the AMA and stuff that he talked about on Reddit that translated onto the screen. Like, he talked about IQ versus EQ, and we saw that scene in the episode. He talked about Paige as a character. He talked about all this different stuff about how he would like to see Smart become cool again, and we saw that translated into the episode. So just the level of care and the level of heart that was in this episode really impressed me. And it was shot well. It was very fast-paced. It was very well done in terms of the first episode. If I had to pick one thing that I didn't necessarily enjoy in the episode, it would be that the structure of the plot felt like, have a problem, solve a problem, new problem, solve that problem, new problem, solve that problem. And it felt like Walter in the episode, it felt like a very analytical approach to storytelling. And I don't think that'll connect so much with viewers, and I don't think that'll translate so well moving forward if every episode has that same formula. And approaching storytelling as a formula, as an analytical problem, I think is going to be the biggest detriment if they continue to do that to the series, because it just felt like it felt off. Like I said, it was this is a problem. No, we solved it, but wait, there's another problem. No, we solved it, but wait, there's another problem. So it felt strained, almost would be a good word to say to describe that. Other than that, the writing was really good. It felt the things they were saying felt natural, as opposed to actors reading lines, which you can get a lot with these types of shows. The storytelling was well done. They set up a lot of stuff. Like I said, they set up the Toby Happy stuff. They set up the Paige Walter stuff. They set up the Walter Ralph stuff. They set up the Ralph Sylvester stuff. They set up the Ralph Paige stuff. They left a lot open, and that's very good for a pilot episode to do. So I thought that the writing and everything like that was well done and was very good in terms of this first episode. I'd like to see that continue, that trend of leaving stuff open, but also I'd like to see some resolution to that. I'd like to see natural development in terms of these storylines. They've planted the seeds, and now I'd like to see them grow and see what happens in terms of, like I said, maybe Cabe's true nature coming out to the rest of the team. Maybe Cabe presents a problem, and his greater good theory maybe puts Paige or Ralph at risk at one point, and that is a step too far for Walter, and maybe the team separates and breaks up. Just an idea, just something that can go towards now that we see that seed planted here in the first season, or the first episode. With that said, that'll wrap up my review, and that'll wrap up this week's reviews. So if you enjoyed any video that you saw this week, leave a like, subscribe, and you will see more videos coming out every week. My Gotham videos come out on Tuesday, my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos come out Wednesdays, and my Scorpion videos, obviously, if you're watching this, come out on Thursdays. So with that said, subscribe if you'd like to see those. Follow me on Twitter at the DH Reviews. I talk about the shows, the nights they come out. I talk about my thoughts on mostly Gotham and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'll talk more about Scorpion if that's something you guys are interested in talking about. Follow me on Twitter. Leave a like on these videos so that I know I'm headed in the right direction, and get these videos out here so we can sort of grow the channel. I'm trying some new stuff. I tried something with my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. review. I'm trying to take the advice of you guys into account and sort of grow more comfortable with these videos, and I hope that comes across when you're watching these. But I can't do that without your help and without your support. So commenting, liking these videos, sharing these videos with people, these are things that really help me out and are really going to allow me to grow the channel into something that's impressive and into something that's high quality, which I'm very invested in giving you guys high quality stuff. I don't want to put a video out that's low quality, and I don't want to review a show that I'm not going to enjoy reviewing and have a lot to talk about. So that's sort of where my head's at after this first week of stuff. I'm very invested in putting out high quality stuff for you guys to watch, and the more support you throw behind these videos, the more I'm able to do that. So that's all I've got for this video. If you want to leave a comment, talk about something I missed, talk about something I mentioned in this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take it easy, guys. Have a good weekend.